The other getting into is the hydronic systems. And now we look at the different type of systems they have. They've got the staple up method, they've got the plate method here. Here they've got it based in concrete. Here's the quick track system, or they've got it poured, for example, like in gypsum underlayment. Now, with these different systems, we must understand how they're going to function, because each one of these will function completely different. So when we start looking at gypsum, here you're looking at is it's a lightweight floor compound. It's one of the most efficient for fire and sound control, and basically a lot of times it's designed for your multi-family residences, but it's used in a radiant heat application. When they're dealing with a gypsum base, typically the gypsum base will give you a thermal mass that is done, so when it's heating it up, you won't have hot and cold spots between the tubings, and so to allow the heat to be dispersed. Kind of like when you step out on a sidewalk after the sun went down, you feel that concrete just being, it's warm, but it's warm throughout. You don't have the hot and cold spots. The next one is getting into, is the hydronic system, and where they're doing the tubes are poured in, going to be in for concrete. Now, the one thing we want to take in consideration here is in the floor business, being your own little investigator if you're doing floor installations. Where's the manifold? Because if you see here, you got, come on remote, you got a hot side and a cold side. So that means that you've got a concentration in this area here that's all going to be your hot spots. So you're going to exceed the requirements of the manufacturer. Coming out of that manifold in the wall, you may have an 8-foot square area here that's going to run way hotter in temperature. So it's always best to shoot and get your builder to find out the photographs. Do we have photographs from the mechanical contractor how he did his layout? You'll be able to see on how that worked. Now their supply temperatures can be between 115 and 170 degrees. And when we do that of 170 degrees, we're going to get into a little bit of how those systems work on different applications. When we look at different applications, for example, here you're looking at the concrete slab and the tubing is within the slab. The next one is a plate system that we showed earlier. Now let's see if I can back up. This is the plate system here, where they put the plates and mounted the plates to the bottom of the plywood or substrate. And then they did insulation from there. The next one gets into is you have a thin slab system, and that would be as our gypsum. We have our suspended, and sometimes you'll find some of the tubing being suspended below into the truss systems. And the other is doing it'd be the plate system, as we see in the plates here. And then you have the staple up system, and then you have your plywood subfloor system. That's where they're running into like your quick track systems and so forth. When we start asking ourselves and identifying with an in-floor heat system, we must first get into is what's the important part of understanding our products. And the first thing we get into is understanding, like, and you can look in, I don't care if you're doing tile, I don't care if you're doing carpet, I don't care if you're doing wood, LVP, but you want to find out what the R value is of your product. For example, let's say that the interior designer selects this engineered wood floor. We're going over in-floor heat. And now they ended up putting this Persian rug in. Well, what's the R value of the pad and the rug? Because if we look at that, the typical span on when looking at R values for in-floor heating is 1.5. That's your threshold of where you want to be. Typically, carpet and pad will be somewhere around 2.3 and 4. Or you might find like some floating floor. If you're looking at floating floors and you're looking at selling a floating floor pad, there are some pads out there that have an R value of 3 and other pads out there that have an R value of 0.1. So if I'm over a radiant heat system, what pad would I want to use? The 0.1. That allows heat transfer to go through without overfiring the heat on the floor. So it's not only understanding when you're dealing with in-floor heat systems, but if we're going to have 80% of the area covered by rug, we'd want to know what type of rug and what that R value is, because it's going to make an effect on where it's going to go. Also with some of the pads, if they have some type of like I'm going to say any kind of like a nylon or a neoprene membrane to it? Did they actually create a vapor retarder on top of that floor, so now nothing can penetrate for the humidity going into the wood? So it's important to know on when you're dealing with in-floor heating and wood floors where the R values are and what the expectations are.